The Young and the Restless spoilers. In the labyrinth of corporate power plays and personal vendettas, a new storm was gathering, a tempest that threatened to engulf long-standing alliances and shatter fragile reputations. Victor Newman, notorious for his relentless thirst for revenge, had unveiled yet another cunning plan aimed squarely at Jack, a man whose psychological acumen and moral resolve had long stood as a bulwark against Victor's schemes. It all began with Victor's decision to infiltrate Jabot, the very nerve center of Abbott Communications' corporate operations. Hidden deep within the bustling corridors of the company was a spy planted by Victor himself, tasked with gathering every morsel of sensitive information related to both the company's internal workings and the storied Abbott family. With each confidential report sent directly to Victor, it became clear that his intentions were not merely to gather intelligence but to orchestrate a precise and devastating counterstrike against Jack. In Victor's mind, the accumulation of these secrets was the first step towards dismantling the stability that Jack had worked so hard to create. Jack, however, was not one to be easily outmaneuvered. The seasoned psychologist and strategic thinker had long sensed that a shadow was creeping through his company's halls. It was only a matter of time before he uncovered that someone within his organization was unwittingly, or perhaps intentionally, aiding Victor's relentless pursuit of retribution. And when that moment of revelation arrived, Jack vowed to be ready with a counterattack, a strike born of both calculated intellect and the emotional scars left by past betrayals. In a twist of fate that only deepened the intrigue, Jack began to piece together hints of Victor's past animosities. Whispers and fragmented memories led him to recall that Victor had once shared a bitter history with a mysterious billionaire named Aristotle Dumas. The name now loomed large in Jack's mind, not as a forgotten relic of past conflicts but as a potential ally, or at least a pawn, in the unfolding drama. Determined to leverage every advantage, Jack decided to reach out to Dumas, whose enigmatic presence and vast resources could prove invaluable in countering Victor's schemes. It was a calculated risk, one that blurred the lines between old grudges and new alliances. As if the intricacies of corporate espionage were not enough, Victor had another card up his sleeve. In a move that was as audacious as it was reckless, he ordered his operatives to track down Lily Winters, using information sourced from Damien Kane. This pursuit was not simply about locating an individual. It was about forging a connection, a thread that intertwined with the distant yet undeniable legacy of Nate Hastings' half-brother. In the convoluted network of familial ties and corporate alliances, this new link could set off a chain reaction, potentially drawing Aristotle Dumas into contact with Jack once more. The possibility of such an unexpected alliance sent ripples of anticipation through the corridors of power. For all his cunning, it was becoming increasingly apparent that Victor had, in many ways, sealed his own fate. His relentless drive for vengeance, particularly against Jack, had led him to pull strings and trigger events that could backfire spectacularly. Had Victor allowed events to unfold more naturally, the carefully maintained balance might have continued. Jack would never have considered launching an aggressive counteroffensive. But Victor's hand had been forced by his own insatiable desire for retribution, a desire that had been simmering ever since that fateful day at the GCAC hotel. The memory of that day was seared into the minds of all who were involved. It was the day when Abbott, already a subject of much controversy, had stumbled into a public scandal by collapsing in the company of Nicky Newman. The incident, which occurred in the plush, yet unforgiving confines of the GCAC hotel, had sent shockwaves through both the corporate world and the personal lives of those entangled in its drama. Nicky's struggle with alcoholism, which had nearly led her to overdose that very day, served as a catalyst for profound personal change. Determined to reclaim her life, Nicky had checked herself into a rehabilitation center, embarking on a journey of recovery and self-reinvention. Her near-tragic collapse had been a wake-up call, a turning point that was, in Victor's eyes, nothing short of a mistake. Victor's reaction to Nicky's recovery was one of bitter disdain. To him, Her admission of vulnerability and her subsequent decision to seek help were seen as weaknesses, a stark contrast to the ruthless self-reliance he prized above all else. That incident had not only provided him with a personal vendetta against Jack but also reinforced his belief that any deviation from his version of strength was an invitation to be exploited. The bitter taste of that day's failures had festered in his memory, fueling his every move with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Now, as Victor's intricate plot unfurled, the stage was set for a dramatic showdown. Jack's intuition told him that the subtle shifts within Abbott Communications were far from coincidental, they were orchestrated. Like the careful moves of a grandmaster in a high-stakes game of chess. With each report received from the planted spy, Jack's resolve strengthened. He knew that the exploitation of his company's secrets was not a random act but a calculated move designed to destabilize his leadership. And in response, he was already assembling his own countermeasures, a web of alliances and strategies that would soon come to fruition. The tension was palpable. Every whispered conversation in the dimly lit back rooms, every furtive glance exchanged in the corridors, spoke of a power struggle that had escalated beyond the realm of simple corporate rivalry. It was a struggle defined by betrayal and ambition, where personal vendettas intersected with the fates of entire families and institutions. Victor, in his pursuit of revenge, had set in motion a series of events that would eventually force him to confront the consequences of his own making. His efforts to provoke Jack had not gone unnoticed. And the day of reckoning was fast approaching. Within this turbulent maelstrom, the characters, each driven by their own demons and desires, stood at the precipice of change. Jack, the quiet yet determined guardian of order, was preparing to strike back, ready to dismantle the network of spies and saboteurs that threatened his company. Meanwhile, the enigmatic Aristotle Dumas loomed as a potential wild card, his mysterious past and immense power a double-edged sword in the unfolding drama. And Victor, with his ceaseless fury and unyielding ambition, had become a man ensnared by the very schemes he had devised, a man whose actions might soon lead to his undoing. In the end, it was the convergence of these disparate threads, a planted spy, a desperate search for Lily Winters, a controversial incident at a luxury hotel, and the scars of personal betrayal, that would determine the fate of Abbott Communications and the lives of those caught in its relentless orbit. As the clock ticked inexorably towards an uncertain future, one thing was clear: in this high-stakes game of power and revenge, every move was a step closer to a dramatic, possibly catastrophic climax. And when that moment finally arrived, the fallout would be as unpredictable as it was inevitable. Jack leaned back in his leather chair, his mind racing with possibilities as he reviewed the proposal from Aristotle Dumas. The terms were bold, audacious, and, above all, perfectly tailored to target their mutual enemy, Victor Newman. For Jack, whose life had become a chessboard of calculated moves and unpredictable betrayals, aligning with Aristotle seemed not only logical but, perhaps, inevitable. Victor was loathsome, a man whose treachery and ruthlessness had sown discord in every corner of their world, and eliminating him had become a mission of both necessity and retribution. Aristotle Dumas, though a relatively new player in the game, carried an air of grand ambition that was impossible to ignore. His proposals were not filled with idle promises. They were meticulously constructed plans aimed at toppling Victor and reclaiming what had been tarnished by his relentless manipulations. In every clause and contingency, Aristotle had outlined a path to dismantle Victor's empire of deceit, piece by calculated piece. And yet, the question remained: could Jack, the consummate strategist, afford to place his trust in this enigmatic figure? Jack knew all too well the nature of ambition. He had seen countless individuals rise on the strength of grand designs, only to fall victim to their own hubris. Aristotle's appearance on the scene was as sudden as it was striking, a new name with a past shrouded in mystery and a future that promised both power and peril. Despite this, the alignment of their interests was undeniable. Both men shared a single, burning objective: the eradication of Victor Newman. For Jack, whose life had been shaped by battles fought in boardrooms and back alleys alike. The possibility of an alliance with someone who possessed both resources and ruthlessness was too tantalizing to dismiss outright. In a quiet, dimly lit office that smelled faintly of old books and stronger coffee, Jack met with Aristotle to discuss the finer details of their proposed alliance. The atmosphere was charged with the weight of unspoken histories and the electric promise of a common enemy about to be vanquished. Aristotle's voice was smooth and measured as he laid out his vision. "Jack, my proposal is simple," he began, his eyes gleaming with a mix of determination and something else, an intensity that bordered on obsession. "Together, we can eliminate Victor Newman. I have the means and the connections to neutralize his influence. All I ask is that you lend your unparalleled strategic mind to our cause." Jack listened intently, his mind dissecting every word. He considered the intricacies of Aristotle's plan, weighing the benefits of a united front against the risks of embracing an ambitious newcomer. "Your plan is impressive," Jack finally replied, his tone cool and reflective. "But ambition, no matter how well concealed, can be a double-edged sword. What assurance do I have that you aren't simply another opportunist waiting for his moment to seize control, even if it means sacrificing our own interests along the way?" Aristotle met Jack's gaze with unwavering confidence. "My ambition is not for personal gain, it's for the greater good of this organization. Victor's tyranny has bled Abbott Communications dry, and his removal is essential for restoring balance. I'm not interested in usurping your position or undermining your influence. I simply offer my expertise and resources to achieve what we both desire." Yet, beneath Aristotle's assurances, Jack could not shake the nagging doubts that lingered in the recesses of his mind. Trust, after all, was a rare commodity in their world, a currency often spent at too high a cost. Jack's thoughts drifted back to the many schemes he had foiled, the deceptions that had nearly cost him everything. "Your words are compelling," Jack conceded slowly, "but actions speak louder than promises. I need to see concrete results before I can fully commit to this alliance. Deceiving me is not something you can easily pull off, and I assure you, I am no fool." Aristotle smiled, acknowledging the truth in Jack's caution. "And rightly so," he said, leaning forward. "I propose that we begin with a small, controlled operation, a test of our combined strengths. We take out one of Victor's key operatives, someone who has been instrumental in his recent machinations. If that operation succeeds, it will serve as proof of our capability and our shared resolve." Jack considered this proposal carefully. The idea of testing their alliance in the crucible of a covert operation had its appeal. It offered a tangible measure of trust and a clear demonstration of results. More importantly, it would send a resounding message to Victor that his days of unchecked tyranny were numbered. However, the stakes were high, and Jack knew that any misstep could tip the scales in favor of chaos rather than order. Outside, the city pulsed with the rhythm of night, its neon lights flickering like distant beacons of hope or warning. Jack stood at the window of his office, contemplating the dual nature of ambition and loyalty. Victor Newman's specter loomed large in his thoughts, a relentless adversary whose every move was designed to destabilize and control. In contrast, Aristotle's promise, though still unproven, offered a chance. As the meeting drew to a close, Jack extended a cautious hand toward Aristotle. "Very well," he said, his voice firm but laced with lingering skepticism. "We will proceed with your proposed operation. But know this, if your ambition leads you to betray our alliance or endanger the very fabric of our organization, I will not hesitate to dismantle everything you've built." Aristotle's grip was firm as he shook Jack's hand. "Understood, Jack. Our fates are intertwined now. Together, we will see Victor removed from power, and in doing so, restore the integrity of Abbott Communications. Let this be the beginning of a new era." In that moment, the alliance was sealed, a pact born of mutual necessity, tempered by cautious optimism and an unyielding determination to outwit a common enemy. Jack's mind, ever analytical and skeptical, began to formulate contingencies and countermeasures even as he acknowledged the potential in Aristotle's bold vision. Trust, however tentative, had been extended. Only time would reveal whether this alliance would herald the downfall of Victor Newman or if Aristotle Dumas's ambition would prove to be a dangerous wildcard, threatening to upend everything Jack had fought so hard to preserve. For now, as Jack returned to his desk and stared at the city sprawled out beneath him, he couldn't help but feel that the game had irrevocably changed. The pieces were set, and a new chapter in this relentless battle was about to unfold, a chapter where every move counted. And the stakes could not have been higher.